Testing. Sounds good? Sounds good to me. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who opened this path of practice. I take refuge in the Dharma, the teachings that have been handed down to us over time. And I take refuge in the Sangha, friends along the way, those who guide and help me along the path. Well, good morning, everyone. I will just say a couple words about who I am. My name is Kodo Conover. Kodo is my Buddhist name. And I'm one of the teachers for the Zen community of Oregon. And I'm a priest, and I am the manager of the downtown temple, Heart of Wisdom, downtown being Portland. And I want to welcome everyone. Most of you are here because you were at a retreat, a weekend retreat, Beginner's Mind. Some of you are here for the first time. Some of you are here because you're residents. And some people are here because they're dedicated long-term practitioners, and this is their home. So hopefully this will have some bits of information, grains of knowledge, wisdom for everyone. Because I'm going to talk a little bit about the beginner's mind. This is a beginner's mind retreat, and we have them every couple times a year. And in fact, we have this requirement for people to, before they take, I think our 5 precept ceremony is to come to a beginner's mind retreat. But these beginner's mind retreat have been so full, like this one, that people can't get in. And so we're saying, okay, you need to come to the monastery and get a taste of stillness. But the beginner's mind is a particular mindset that I think is really important. What is a beginner's mind? It's dropping our expectations and preconceived ideas about something and seeing with an open mind, fresh eyes, just like a beginner. Often we say, I'm a beginner, so don't expect anything. Don't expect me to know anything. It kind of puts you off the hook for a while, takes you off the hook while you learn, and perhaps then learn the task. But how do you keep that beginner's mind throughout your life as you encounter more and more circumstances? Can you have a beginner's mind and be an expert? Well, the term beginner's mind comes from Zen philosophy and was brought to the West in the writings and speeches of a Japanese Zen master, Shenryu Suzuki, who's also was the founder of the San Francisco Zen Center. And he's famous for several of his quotes, one of them being, "A beginner's mind is wide open and questioning. An expert's mind is closed." And this is from his famous book, which a lot of people read, and it brought them to Zen, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. In Zen Buddhism, the concept called beginner's mind refers to the attitude of approaching something with fresh perspectives, as if you're seeing it for the first time. So if you can remember to do this, it's like you have come into the Zendo many, many times, but can you come in with a beginner's mind, with fresh eyes? So I kind of tasked myself with this today. Could I come down and bow and offer incense with a beginner's mind? Can I sit here with a beginner's mind? What would that be like? Sitting, of course, in a way you could say, it's always new, it's always different. This configuration of people has never happened before. All of you sitting here. And it will never happen again. So if we all can have beginner's mind, we all can drop our preconceived ideas, then something interesting, something special can really happen. Here's a short Zen story about beginner's mind. Maybe you've heard it before, so maybe you can listen with a beginner's mind. Once a university professor went to visit a well-respected Zen master to learn about Zen. The master first invited him to sit down and have a cup of tea. The professor sat down and started talking about Zen. And we've probably all had some kind of situation like that where someone comes and just starts explaining to you something that maybe you were going to have a conversation about. They wanted to show their intellectual ability, about their knowledge about some subject. So the master quietly prepared and poured the tea. And when the tea was at the brim, he kept pouring. The professor watching the overflowing cup until he couldn't restrain himself anymore and said, "It's over, it's full. No more will go in." And then the Zen master said, "The same with your mind. How can I teach you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" So I think part of what we did this weekend was to empty the cup. I heard people explain it in a lot of different ways. Kind of releasing energy or dissolving issues and being open to new ideas. Emptying the cup. Is that what meditation is about? So this concept came from Japan, and it has a specific word called shoshin. It means beginner's mind. It refers to having that attitude of openness, eagerness, and lack of preconception while studying, even at an advanced level, just as a beginner would. And it's especially used in the study for us in Zen Buddhism, but also in Japanese martial arts. The practice of shoshin acts as a counter to the hubris or arrogance and closed-mindedness often associated with thinking of yourself as an expert. There's this, I ran into this, it's kind of interesting, it's called an Einstellung effect, where a person becomes so accustomed to a certain way of doing things that they do not consider or acknowledge new ideas or approaches at all. But this idea of a beginner's mind, which we think of as Zen Buddhism, as a Zen Buddhist concept, has really seeped into American culture in business and art, entertainment and sports, all different areas. Here's an example of that from Forbes magazine. And Forbes is a global media company focused on business and investing leadership. They said, having a beginner's mindset can be incredibly helpful in our personal and professional lives. It can help us learn to see from a different perspective, explore new beliefs, ideas, solve problems more effectively, and be more creative. When we are open to new possibilities, we are more likely to see opportunities that we would have otherwise missed. We are also more likely to be willing to take risks and try new things. Of course, this is from a business leadership point of view, so they're looking at it through that lens. From Inc., a business magazine, has a headline of how a beginner's mind can transform your leadership. The key is to blend expertise with constant curiosity. It's just interesting how the culture picks up these concepts that are really based in Zen Buddhism. So a little more on this concept, this word, shoshin. It refers to a kind of a paradox. in that the more you know about a subject, the more likely you are to close your mind to further learning. Another quote by Shinryu Suzuki in his book, Zen Mind, Open Beginner's Mind. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. Now, you can agree or disagree with all these different ideas. That's part of our practice too. Is what I say, take it and think about it. Let's see if it works. There's a lot of historical examples of how the expert mind led to being closed-minded and obstructed a lot of progress. There's one example I ran into about a German physicist, and he suggested that the Earth consisted of shifting continental plates. Now, we probably all have heard about this and studied it and know it, but when he first came out with this, they said it was delirious ravings. And in the United States, they said, he's perpetrating pseudoscience. Kind of sounds like what's happening these days too. And it would take decades before they finally came up with this, that science agreed with this premise. There's also research that says that even feeling like an expert breeds closed-mindedness. And the consequences of intellectual overconfidence, we can see that in our debates these days. So my question is, how do we keep a beginner's mind even as we become more experts, become more knowledgeable, or our abilities grow? How do we keep a beginner's mind? Well, I think this weekend is a great example. One of the things with a beginner's mind, we're receptive to ideas and possibilities. When we're fixed on our shoulds and wants, and it has to be a certain way, that keeps us in a closed-minded state of mind, inflexible to change, rigid to new possibility. And this kind of goes across age groups too. Definitely goes across age groups. As Myoyu mentioned several times about our habitual patterns of using devices and social media. Do we have a fixed view on how much social media we need to be involved in? Do we have a fixed view of how important social media is? Or do we have a fixed view that I can't leave my device alone for a weekend? So every generation has its areas of fixed views and inflexibility. Even though we think, oh, this is a new technology. It's new technology, but with old biases and fixed ways of dealing with things. But if we can open up into a new place, or maybe an old place with fresh eyes, there's just this potential for, I had to say it was kind of a potential for something unknown and perhaps mysterious to arise and to be seen. So I remember my first Zen retreat. It was very similar to this one, although it wasn't called a beginner's mind. It's like I joined a retreat at the end. I think Thursday night, and was there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I was completely unaware of what it was going to be like. And even if I had an idea of what it would be like, it was nothing like I thought it would be. And probably most of you, if you if you imagine what this retreat was going to be like before you came, that would be pretty amazing because there's just changes all the time. I remember I was pretty nervous about going. So if you were nervous about coming here for the first time, it's really common. Maybe I was a little overly alert. But I had this determination to do it. And I joined this group, the Zen Community of Oregon, at a retreat center in Clackamas County, not knowing at all what I was in for. And this is way before Great Vow or Heart of Wisdom. But I could say it was a pivotal experience. Well, why was it pivotal? Well, I had a deep experience of a beginner's mind. Whatever I thought that retreat was going to be like, whatever preconceived ideas I might have had, they were all shattered. In a way, I was kind of forced to have a beginner's mind, or just leave. So if you've had that thought, that maybe I should leave, what have I gotten myself into? You're not alone with that. But what I kind of talk to myself, I say, just calm down and take one step at a time. So why was this pivotal for me? It was silent. I had no idea when they said it's going to be a silent retreat that it meant silent all the time. I thought, oh yeah, sure. We'll be silent while we meditate. But the continuous silence throughout the few days was, I would say, really, I mean, I liked the silence a lot, but it also gave me an opportunity to be quiet with myself a bit. And also to just see how scattered my mind was. So this silence is really important. I liked having my little space on the Zabuton, and it felt very efficient. Somehow it was new, but it was familiar, and it felt very manageable. So I could appreciate the forms, which many people mentioned. They said, I appreciate having all those decisions that I'd have to make taken away from me in a way, and I just had to follow along. It was my very first experience with Oryoki, and since I came kind of late, somebody whispered the instructions to me when I came in, do this, do this. But it wasn't too hard to follow, and we ate in the zendo. So we just put our bowls out in front, and I thought, wow, I can do this. So I had some successes in my own mind. But I remember I thought when they passed the water along, the wash water down, and you can drink some of it, I thought, I will never do that. I will never do that. So it was a fixed view I had from something. But now that finally that barrier has been broken, when I realized it is just a fixed view, it's just warm water flavored with the same food that I had just eaten. And it opens up a whole nother, aspect of how we're connected and how we're so wasteful. On that retreat, I realized how time could expand and contract while sitting on the cushion. Mostly it expanded to feel like a pretty long time. And so sitting in that kind of a little bit of discomfort, it's a discomfort, gave me some confidence that I could do it. And so to this retreat, we sat in some heat. For some people, there's no heat. But for a lot of people, this was pretty hot, and you had to sit with some discomfort. Maybe sweat running down your face. Just wondering, how long will this session last? Did the timekeeper fall asleep? All those. And then how we can take care of ourselves. I had a great experience of waiting for Sanzen. And I might have made all this up by now because it's been a long time, and But what I remember is, at first they said, okay, it's time for sunset. And they came to me and I said, nah, I'm not going to do it. Because when they gave the explanation, it was too complicated. And I just said, I can't do this, it's too complicated. But in those days, you had to go. So they just said, no, you don't have a choice. Come, get out here. And you were inside, and then you went outside into the middle of the field. And then you went to the hut where Chosen was. Well, sitting in the middle of the field, it had snowed, and there was snow, and the stars were all out, and I sat in the middle of the field, and I thought, I've died and gone to heaven. This is the best thing that I've experienced so far. Just sitting there in the snow and looking. We had a blanket or something, and just being there in that environment, I was thinking, this is so different. This is so different than any experience I've had. Then I remember at the end we had a closing circle, just like we did there. And I remember getting the words Sanzen, Zazen, Sesshin, all mixed up. And probably used them all wrong, because they all just sounded the same to me. But no one seemed to care. And I just expressed a deep gratitude for the experience. And then Chosen's remark at the closing circle, which she probably gave talks that I don't remember about, but she said something about how she noticed how brightly painted the flower pots were. She might have said something different, but that's what I remember. And I thought, noticing how brightly painted the flower pots. Did I miss that? Yeah, I missed that. What else am I missing? To be able to really see and to be able to really observe deeply had always intrigued me. And then also, I was energized. I was totally energized. It was like energy that I had never really felt before, but also had a great sense of joy. And then it was all over, and everyone disappeared, and I was left with wanting more. I wanted to come back. I want more of that experience. I want to know what's happening. So maybe you've had a similar, or maybe this experience will stick with you for decades, because you have a beginner's mind. This required a beginner's mind to be here. So how can the practice of a beginner's mind transform our activities and perhaps get rid of some of our old difficulties so that we can be more flexible and open and curious? It may come naturally for some people, but it may take some effort and practice. But here's a couple suggestions. Dropping expectations. That's hard to do. Just drop expectations. And you can apply this to every activity. Perhaps just take an example, eating breakfast when you go home. Eating breakfast by actually looking at your bowl with fresh eyes, as if you didn't know what to expect, even if you've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. Oh, oatmeal. Then really look at the bowl and the spoon and the food. And just notice details that maybe you haven't noticed before. The textures and the tastes and the smells and the sight. Pay close attention, as if you don't really know what it's going to taste like. I noticed, you learn in school, you taste these different things in parts of your tongue. And then during this weekend, I noticed, the spicy, it's all the way in the back of my throat. not at the tip of my tongue, but way back there. It's like the spiciness. Where did that spiciness come from? Oh yeah, I remember I put hot sauce on my broccoli or something. So just pay close attention and bring your mind to the food that you're eating or whatever it is that you're doing. Everything will seem new and perhaps full of wonder. And don't take anything for granted. Every bite is a gift. It's temporary and fleeting and precious. And I really enjoy diving deeply into the appreciation of our food and its variety and how many hands it took to deliver it to my table. The farmers who grew the crop, the people who harvested it, processed it, the shipping, the grocery clerks, the people who stocked the shelves. It just goes on, even to as much as the people who designed the labels on our cans of food or on the cartons or whatever. It's never-ending web of cooperation, mostly, and interconnectedness. And as you can see, this practice of a beginner's mind can transform an activity from being monotonous, which is often a problem for us. We go, oh, I have to do it again, to investigating some of the very fundamental Zen Buddhist teachings, interconnectedness and impermanence. Impermanence. As I eat this meal, it transforms into energy to fuel this body. It's an amazing process, as you all know. You just have to open your mind to it. Sometimes we talk about taking on a don't know mind, which is basically the same as a beginner's mind, but a little bit different way of practicing with us. We can practice with using the words, I don't know. Just saying, I don't know, has a freeing element to it. We can add, I don't know, to most of our thoughts. For example, if we're after sitting, we could say, that was a good sit. But if you add, I don't know, it helps us get rid of this comparing. So this is bad. This is a bad situation. I don't know. Or I can't manage this. I don't know. I need this. Or I am. Or I don't know. This was a reminder. It said, there used to be a bumper sticker a long time ago, probably more in my time, that says, question authority. But this I don't know really questions the authority of everything we think. So this also helps us get to these tightly held ideas, these fixed views. In a way, it can pull the rug out from underneath our cherished beliefs. Now, all too often, we don't question what we believe. And since our thoughts reinforce these beliefs, it's an important practice to really look deeply into, what is it? Do I know anything? And then I want to add one more little thought. I think here is about adopting patience. Patience is an important aspect of our training, and it's one of the paramitas. Paramitas are Zen Buddhist trainings that are said to be an antidote to disharmony. They can teach us that if we can let go of our tight grasp on life, our basic Buddha nature will respond spontaneously and appropriate to whatever arises, harmonizing with and bringing benefit to all beings. This actually sounds a lot like beginner's mind. But often patience is seen as waiting quietly until it's your turn, or until you can maneuver things to go your way or the way you want them to go. Maybe that's what we learned in school. But it's also a very self-concerned definition of patience. But the patience I'm speaking of is this antidote to disharmony. And as I mentioned, the 6 paramitas, generosity, ethical living, patience, energy, concentration, and wisdom, they're fundamental qualities that we emphasize. They're guidelines for our spiritual and ethical development. But we could talk about that for all day, but I'm not going to. I just want to mention this patient part. Patient, the word is kshanti in Sanskrit or Pali. Patiently and tolerant, bearing witness to hardships and difficulties, but not passively. The perfection of patience is transformative. It transforms difficult circumstances from misfortunes or disasters into spiritual benefits. So everything we have, everything that comes at us, everything we've had in our life can be used as part of our spiritual practice if we use patience. And patience came up several times, both collectively and individually. Whether it's patience with the heat, or our emotional state, our physical discomfort, our anxieties, or agitations. And also, I just wanted to add and tease you a little bit more about, there's a lot more of Buddhist teachings that you may be interested in. So just patience is one little thing. So here's a few reasons why a beginner's mind might be helpful for us. It allows our experiences to be genuine. Some people would say better. If your mind is not already clouded by prejudices, preconceptions, fantasies about what should or shouldn't happen, if you're not clouded by these assumptions about how it's going to turn out, as I said in the beginning, you won't be frustrated or disappointed by the experience because there's nothing to compare it to. Just like this beginner's mind retreat, there's really nothing to compare it to because it just is what it is. Having a beginner's mind helps with better relationships. If you're talking to someone, instead of being frustrated with them because they're not meeting your ideal, if you can see the person with fresh eyes and notice they're just like you, they're trying to be happy, they have good intentions, even if they may not be your intentions. They're struggling like you. So having open mind, beginner's mind, with your relationships can really transform your relationships. It can help you be less procrastinating. Because often we just say, oh, this is a big task, I've done it a bunch of times, I know what it's going to be, I've done this often. You can shift to be more curious about it. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You can look at the details in a different way. Instead of trying to get away from them, notice the importance of them. A little bit less anxiety. If you have an upcoming event and you're anxious about, instead of worrying, what will happen or what people might think of you, embrace the moment with an open heart and open mind, this beginner's mind. Just finding gratitude in the moment. And when you're receptive to ideas and possibilities, there's less frictions with others. And this is one thing I've worked on quite a bit. Maybe I still do it, but I had a habit, I'll say had, of jumping to no when something was presented to me. Any new big idea. In fact, I can say when Heart of Wisdom was, when I was in a group and we were talking about Heart of Wisdom, I said, no, that's not going to happen. It's too big, it's too hard, it's too much. No. And maybe it's because I can see the amount of work and commitment it would take to have a project. But jumping to no. I usually always came around to yes, but this idea of jumping to no first, I don't know exactly where it came from, but I'm working on not doing it as often, at least. Or at least seeing it. If I jump to no first and I'll say, okay, I'm going to say no now, but I know I'll change my mind. So you may be able to see new creative solutions to challenges. That's great. The art world, they use this beginner's mind quite a bit. When you get stuck, this creative process is stuck. How do you open up to a beginner's mind? One of the nice things about having a beginner's mind is you're able to ask for help more readily. And this is important to get over our ideas of being, armored up and not wanting to show our vulnerability, that we want to always look a certain way. So asking for help is really, it can really accelerate your understanding. And you can view any kind of failure as just feedback. So all these aspects of having a beginner's mind points directly to letting go of our fixed views and opening up to our genuine, authentic self. But most importantly, this is a way of benefiting yourself and others by causing less stress and less suffering. Releasing anxiety and worry about how you will look to others relieves your suffering. Dropping the comparing, critical, judgmental mind allows you to be genuine and authentic. When anxiety and worry drops away, joy and happiness can arise. So investigate these preconceived ideas, those ideas you already have opinions about without really giving it much thought. Investigate those thoughts. Anchor your awareness in your feet, as Myoyu has taught, or in your breath, and take one step at a time. And now that you have been given the light of the Dharma, keep it shining in your own authentic way. And always remember to have a beginner's mind. Thank you.